Attention. And unless we all learn how to live together in this world, the human race will surely be extinct. Because crime, opium wars, and broken lives, AIDS plaguing the land. Against the sex drive, unemployment is a rising, suicide is up. So much pressure inside, I'm about to erupt.
Hey, it is Wednesday, and you're listening to, well, you're watching and listening, the Independent Media Center's Crashing the Party. You are crashing the party. We're broadcasting to you live every day this week from Philadelphia, where the Republicans are their National Confederation, I keep wanting to call it, but it's really the convention. The theme of the evening this Wednesday night over there in South Philly, where the RNC is having its shindig in the FU, otherwise known as First Union Center, is Leave No Child Behind. It's pretty rich, coming from a ticket headed by G.W. Bush and Dick Cheney. G.W. Bush, who as governor has brought Texas into second place as having the worst rate of children born without health insurance, and the second or third, I think it is, ranking when it comes to children born into poverty. The nation's rate is bad enough, 1 in 5 children born in poverty. In Texas, it's 1 in 4, a full quarter. It's about 48th worst place to raise a child in this nation. So much for leaving no child behind. Cheney, of course, was against anyone having a head start, but more of that later. On the topic of leaving no child behind or no youth behind, there were people left behind in Philadelphia today. Left behind from the protests yesterday. They were in jails, on the streets of North Philadelphia, however, were deeply noticed in legal services offices and other places. Individuals and organizations were noticed, watched, and arrested by the press. Here's some of the coverage. Let's watch the tape. You were confusing me, but it's okay.
Office which is being operated in order to assist us in the defense of clients.
It is explained the violation.
And the material in that office is as confidential as the material in any attorney's office. We cannot function as attorneys without an office for people to call in from when they get arrested, to let us know they've been arrested. What is happening here, in the very best case, is an attempt to intimidate attorneys, our clients, and an attempt to intimidate people who want to exercise their First Amendment rights. At its worst, if there is a warrant, if they do attempt to go in there and shut down a legal office, then this will be a major violation of constitutional rights.
Brought their files out of the offices for fear of a raid.
Pure coincidence. All of a sudden, after the first civil disobedience, they're out here intimidating the legal folks.
Files out.
We need to by police.
Are you really not afraid the police are going to see something?
It's a possibility. How'd you notice?
Police targeted individuals as well as organizations too, and arrested people as onlookers were left puzzled, but with a story to tell. Here's one onlooker coming up.
Policemen were kind of, it seemed like they were pouncing on people and pushing them to the wall.
Really?
And so I call and saying things like, "We've seen you before."
Throw it!
An AIDS activist was arrested in a classic example of profiling. His cell phone, kicked around there, did escape unharmed. The arrested were taken to Philadelphia Police Headquarters, known as the Roundhouse, where in solidarity protesters gathered outside, or to this place, Holmesburg Penitentiary, a 19th century prison unused since 1995, reopened to house protesters without AC. Wimps reminded us how women and families have fared under Bush-Cheney, perhaps the most anti-choice ticket in decades.
We are here to take a stand. We want abortion on demand. 2, 6, 8. We're the ones who ovulate.
And economic rights were also an issue at a demonstration outside Citibank.
The Republican Party and bought them. In the name of greed, Citigroup, Bush and Cheney.
We want health and education. Shut down Citigroup. No more exploitation. Shut down Citigroup.
Meanwhile, in North Philadelphia, the city's poorest district, AIDS activists, as well as the Speaker of the House, Dennis Hastert, made a visit, but with varying results. Here's John Bell, an AIDS activist in Philadelphia.
What has been the tactics of the Republican Party in the past to be concerned about people who don't have as much money as they do. If they are concerned, I find that very hard to believe.
What's your name?
Here's Dennis.
That's good. Daryl? Right. You like to play football? Huh? Look, hey, you're a football player.
Republicans got into office, and they put more money out here. It won't be where it belongs. It'll be for them and themselves only. It won't be like where we live at. Where we live at. They won't put it where we live at. They don't care nothing about nothing else that's going on outside in this world at all. They gotta do is kick back, put their hands behind their head, and let everybody else do the work. Yeah, and they kids got everything they want and everything they need.
We bring you the voices from the street and also from the press conferences held every day, open to the public. Not enough press is showing up, but some, by the people who are organizing these protests. They're called the R2K Coalition, and just in case your local corporate press isn't covering this press conference live, we will. We'll go to that tape right live to where the press conference is taking place.
Good evening, and thank you all for coming. My name is Celia Alario, and I'm with the R2K Network Media Services. I'm going to be moderating tonight's press briefing. We're going to be talking about the truth from the streets today, both today's and yesterday's events. We have 5 for you who are going to talk about these important issues. The first speaker is going to be Phoebe Schellenberg. She's with the Wages for Housework campaign, and she's going to talk about the mothers, partners, sisters, wives marching for our loved ones' lives, events that took place today. Our second speaker is going to be Eric Brownstein. He's from the Rainforest Action Network, and he's going to be talking about the Citigroup actions that took place today. Our third speaker will be Sarah Marcus. She's from the R2K Legal Committee, and she's going to be giving legal from things that have taken place both today and yesterday. And our fourth speaker will be Peter Chung. He's with the People of Color Direct Action Network, and he's going to speak to issues that took place yesterday when the theme of the day was going against the criminal injustice system. So I'm going to invite Phoebe up here first to talk about today's events.
Thank you. Good evening. Well, today women stepped up to the plate to add our voices to the protests of policies of both political parties. We were women farmers and farm workers. We were breastfeeding advocates and mothers, AIDS activists, trade unionists, environmentalists, welfare rights activists, and pay equity supporters. And we were caregivers of all kinds who are sick and tired of doing 2/3 of the world's work for 5% of the income. We ranged in age from 2 months old to 83 years old, and we were led by a puppet with many arms to signify the amount of work that women do, and often all at the same time. Our march was permitted, but the police attempted to disrupt the march by stopping and searching and delaying our truck that had our puppet in it. But that only served to strengthen our solidarity with all of those who've been arrested during this protest events. We stepped up today to spell out how we women, and particularly women of color, pay the highest price for globalization and for the policies of the political parties. Every time a hospital is closed down, we pick up the slack. Every time wages are lowered, we have to make do. Every time farms are closed down, we're the ones who work to try to save them. And we do more healthcare work as women than all healthcare industries combined. We made 3 stops on our march. We stopped first at the USDA, the U.S. Department of Agriculture, to protest that 40% of formula in this country is purchased by the USDA for the WIC program instead of promoting breastfeeding, which everyone knows is better for women. We protested the fact that the USDA is putting forward policies that support agribusiness and are closing family farms, and that they have not complied with the consent decree to pay the black farmers for their discrimination. We stopped at the federal building to protest the lack of pay equity for both administrations, of all administrations, and for welfare reform, which is denying that raising children is work and that every mother is a working mother. And our final stop was Roman Haas, a chemical company, to protest the chemicals that are being poured into the environment, increasing ill health and increasing our healthcare workload. We were demanding that there be a total change in priorities from the production of things to people. And we are demanding the military budget, which is estimated by the UN to be $800 billion worldwide, whereas only $80 billion, 1/10 of that, could satisfy all human need, including the need for decent pay. We're going after that military budget, and we want it now. Thank you.
So our next speaker is Eric Brownstein. He's from the Rainforest Action Network, and he's going to share some information about an action that took place, very much spotlighted the issues of campaign finance corruption. Eric.
Thank you. My name is Eric Brownstein. I work with the Rainforest Action Network. And in the context of the repression in the streets of our creative voices, in the context of intimidation and harassment on the streets today, a beautiful and broad coalition of groups came together to present an award to Citigroup, North America's largest private finance institution, for the dubious distinction of being the world's most destructive bank. Citigroup, which is made up of Solomon Smith Barney and Citibank, as well as Travelers Insurance, has offices here in Philadelphia at Liberty Place. After the research that our organization have done into this, we found this institution involved in everything from the redlining of poor communities to the destruction of California's redwoods. From investments in the prison industry to investments in polluting industries around the world. This company is responsible for the destruction of our environment and both communities here, communities of color, as well as indigenous communities around the world. So we pulled together a beautiful ceremony. We had several hundred people in front of the offices. We gave speeches. We had Act Up Philadelphia's gospel choir. We had balloons. We had masks. And we tried to present them with this award. It was very festive in the face of everything that was happening today. This international coalition of groups from the South Bronx to South Africa, from San Francisco to Washington, D.C., has come together to confront the excesses of corporate globalization, a globalization that puts profits over people. This international coalition is not going to be denied, and it was represented in the streets today, as well as yesterday, as well as in the days to come. This is a campaign for a sane economy. This is a campaign that recognizes that this global economy is a doomsday machine, and Citigroup is really the representative of that movement that we need to confront. The real battle facing right now is a battle in the streets, as we all saw, but this battle is not versus people, between people. This is a battle of values. This is a battle of Main Street versus Wall Street, the values of Main Street versus Wall Street. Thanks very much.
So next, Sarah Marcus from the R2K Legal Committee is going to speak to us about legal issues regarding both today's and yesterday's events.
Good evening. As she said, I'm Sarah Marcus from the R2K Legal Collective, not committee. I'm here to counter the story that we've been getting in the media today. The media has been telling us that the police have behaved admirably throughout the whole protest situation. I'm here to tell you the real story. Currently, between 350 and 500 people are being punished in Philadelphia for exercising their First Amendment rights. Besides physical and emotional brutality, protesters are being subjected to bail of between $15,000 and $100,000. According to our lawyers, this is the highest bail that has ever been set in the United States for misdemeanor charges, such as the ones that the protesters in Philadelphia are facing. And the protesters have been experiencing brutality at the hands of authorities, contrary to what the media would have you believe right now. Brutality has included isolation of 10 people, withholding of medical care for people with HIV, asthma, epilepsy, as well as injuries sustained from officers on the street. In the legal office, we've received a report from women in prison who saw a male protester dragged through the hallway naked, screaming in pain, bleeding from his shoulder to his wrist, severely bruised on his back, and his fingers were blue. Sadly, this is not unusual. It's actually representative of the very issues these people were protesting about, that prisons have little to no accountability for human rights abuses. The people in jail are doing everything they can on these issues. Currently, there are 140 protesters on hunger strike in the prisons. Their spirits are not broken. They're staying in solidarity with each other and in isolation. They're demanding equal treatment, medical care for people who need it, reduction of charges, credit for time served. But they need the help of people on the outside. We're asking for people immediately to call the police commissioner and the mayor, let them know that you're aware of the situations and following it and concerned about it. I'll give you those numbers in a minute. We also are in dire need of legal observers. And in the long term, we need to continue the political pressure on these issues of police brutality and criminal justice system. Other cities are currently looking to Philadelphia as an example of how to handle future protests in their own cities. We hope nobody takes what's going on in this city as a model. Thank you.
I just want to assure you that she'll be back with those phone numbers for you before the end of the press conference. Our next speaker is going to be Peter Chung, and he Direct Action Network, People of Color Direct Action Network. Thank you.
Wow, this seems so formal. As you know, anybody listening, reading, or watching the media, we can only see that what has been shown from yesterday's actions were the, quote, violent actions and property destruction, unquote. As we cannot deny that these actions are questions as organizers and people that participated in the actions yesterday, with what happened to the 99% of the actions that were nonviolent? Where is the media when these actions are occurring? What we have seen is a systematic whitewash of those actions that were nonviolent, that brought to light the issues we were trying to talk about yesterday. Those issues are around the criminal injustice system in this country and how it adversely affected people of color and working communities. We came together as organizers, rallying around issues that really concern us on our daily lives. These issues are stuff that we must deal with when we go back to our communities, and these are issues that we want the whole world to know. We want them to know we need freedom for all political prisoners, including Mumia Abu-Jamal. We need an abolishment of the racist death penalty. We need to abolish the prison industrial complex. We need to stop police violence. And we need to end the corporate war on the poor. What we have learned from the activities in the streets yesterday is that we are building a movement, and we are once again bringing power to our communities. It is through our collective effort that we have done this, and we are excited to, from this moment forward, and to gain more experiences and to be stronger when we come back. Thank you.
Okay, we're going to go ahead and open up for question and answers. I'd like to ask that when you pose your question, please state your name and the media outlet that you're from, and I'm going to ask the speakers to go ahead and come up, be here. If you have someone in particular you'd like to address your question to, please indicate that. So can I see hands up, people who would like to ask questions? Okay, go ahead.
Susan Phillips from the Independent Media Center. I'm wondering if there's been
Okay. You'll want to come to the podium.
My name is Eric Brownstein, Rainforest Action Network, working in the R2K Media Desk office, and reports coming from the street as well as from the desk. Somewhere between 30 and 50 people were arrested today. She can speak more specifically to the numbers, but one of the things that was quite interesting today was apparently many of the so-called leaders of this movement were identified and targeted. It's quite interesting to see this because there are no leaders in this movement. This is a decentralized movement of many different groups coming together. It's really representative of a sort of web-based society in some ways that we have with different affinity groups. In addition, it sort of illustrates this sense of profiling. You know, you focus on one person, and this is something that communities of color see, you know, every day. Low-income communities see this every day, so it's kind of ironic. But maybe I'll let you speak a little bit more to any information you have, if there's other information other than 30 to 50. If not, then okay, good.
Okay, we'll take it next.
My name is Alex Townsend. I'm with KCNU Radio in Boulder, Colorado. My question is, the Republican National Convention theme today was not one child left behind, and your event was mothers, partners, daughters, wives, marching for our loved ones, wives. And I wanted you to address the differences between what's being spoken about in the convention and what's being addressed out in the streets.
The question was how were what we're doing out on the streets today with our march different from the Republican convention theme for today, which was not one child left behind. And I mean, the first thing is we find it very ironic that they always separate the children from the mothers. I mean, the children are poor because the mothers are poor, and mothers and children are the largest single category of those below the poverty line. And that's because of policies of the Republican Party, welfare reform, which they supported, lack of pay equity, which they support. Women are having to live off of less than half of what men live off of if you take benefits and that into account. So we really do find it very ironic. Women have really had enough of it. We're planning a global women's strike. We had one on March 8th, 2000. Women in 65 countries took time off of their work to call attention to the issues of women and children, and that's going to be double in 2001. But I think the irony of the whole thing is, you know, they're talking about not one child left behind, but what about the millions? And the fact that today when we were protesting the USDA purchasing 40% of the formula, formula feeding is responsible for the deaths of 1.5 million infants worldwide. So we hope they're also talking about not one child left behind anywhere.
Okay, let's see. I'm going to go ahead and go here and then there.
Yeah, Nick McCarthy, New York Times. The police evidently are being put, at least on the wires, saying there were 4 arrests today. So it's a two-parter. First of all, how do you guys come to the 30 to 50 number? What's your method for tying that? And secondly, speaking of the quote leaders, do you have names of these who might have been picked up as well?
We're going to have another member of the legal committee speak to answering that question.
Sure. Okay. The question was, the police had reported that 4 people were arrested today, and where accounts for the discrepancy in the numbers, and do we have names of those leaders or the people they are identifying as leaders? In terms of the first question, the police have not exactly been forthcoming about information about people who have been missing. And actually, people were on the bus last night for over 7 hours until past midnight. So I'm not sure. It partly depends when you're counting for today starting, and it also partly depends on whether or not you count the people that they haven't processed. Earlier, they said absolutely there were only 150 people in jail. Then they said 258. So we're not counting their numbers. We get our numbers from people, our legal observatory, and people who can call us from jail. In answer to the second part of the question, since there are no leaders, and the people that are in solidarity are isolated, have been practicing jail solidarity, which means that they're not giving their names, and so we can't divulge those either, and actually don't have them.
Okay, next question.
I'm Josh Oppenheimer from Faction Films of London. One of your events made focused on the Green which was evidence central to the Seattle and DC protests, and just wondering how that relates, if at all, to the Republican convention.
Do you want to answer that, please?
Because the Citigroup action today was specifically related to the theme of globalization, I'll speak to that briefly. Seattle and DC focused on themes of globalization, one on a trade institution and two others on giant financial institutions. Turning the attention towards Citigroup in particular as the largest private finance institution is sort of another step deeper into the system, looking beyond single issue politics, bringing all these different groups together. Citigroup's intimate involvement with both political parties to the tune of about $18 million over the last 3 years is how much they've spent to influence the political system, was a great opportunity to highlight their role in influencing the system, which obviously is completely interrelated to globalization issues, the corporate excesses of globalization versus the globalization of people's values and environmental sustainability.
And in the Women's March, too, we spelled out how the priorities of the global market in general are going against so much what we in our communities want. The priorities of the global market are the production of things.
3, 2.
Just in case, you may have noticed a slight difference between this television broadcast and others you may have seen. That's because this TV is TV for the curious many. Much of the other media coverage is TV for the already quite satisfied few. For more information about just where this broadcast is coming from, you can find out from websites www.freespeech.org or satellite.indiemedia.org. That's why. And we want to thank you for tuning in, whether you're watching us on Free Speech TV's Dish Network, channel 9415, or your local public access station. The program is another hour long, and we have a lot more in store for you. So you may want, if you're at one of the stations that's pulling away right now, to call the station and say, please play the whole package. We'll be right back after this break. I'm Laura Flanders for Radio for Change.
Here at the G8 Summit, are the world's biggest problems really on the agenda? Pollution, overconsumption, toxic waste, economic progress is killing the planet. The global economy is a doomsday machine.
Watch television, watch television set. Looking to get more out of your TV this summer? Get the best of progressive television from the Independent Media Center and Free Speech TV, now playing 24/7 on Dish Network channel 9415. Visit freespeech.information on how to bring the best of the activist airwaves into your home.
I think that the revolution is being televised. Yes, it is.
Attention. And unless we all learn how to live together in this world, the human race will surely be extinct. Because whether you like it or not, crime, opium wars, and broken lives, AIDS plaguing the land. Against the sex drive, unemployment is a rising, suicide is up. So much pressure inside.
Live and direct inside the IMC of Philadelphia, this is The Last Stamp, and I'm here with the IMC team. Kevin from the IMC video team is going to just basically tell us what the process is like once new footage comes to the IMC.
Well, people are shooting footage out in the street. They're coming in and dubbing their tapes and logging them. We have a notebook with all the footage people have, and they're telling us what it is and where it is on the tapes. Then all the different teams can use those tapes to edit segments for this show. We have some editing systems set up here, based editing systems that will, people are putting together things that you're seeing on tonight's show.
Okay, now within the past 72 hours in light of the Republican National Convention, is there any footage that sticks out in your mind?
Well, we've had a lot of footage of the actions in the streets, the police raid on the Puppet Center, and a lot of really impassioned people talking about the issues.
Okay, next, we would like to go to some IMC concerning civil disobedience in the streets of Philadelphia, as well as the arrest and release of Michael Africa from Philadelphia's own MOVE organization. You don't want to miss it.
People are engaged in nonviolent direct action and civil disobedience, which has a long, rich history in this country. They have decided that because a higher law, moral law is being broken, they are going to break a law and get out into the streets to block traffic and to disrupt the move of the delegates at the convention today, to draw attention to these issues.
Back up there.
Are you going to stop this from happening, sir? What's up? Any comments? Can I ask you a question if y'all are planning on doing anything about this?
I don't have no idea.
You have any comments on what you're seeing?
Having fun.
Huh?
I'm having fun.
Having fun. You think this is a bad thing or a good thing?
It's not a good thing.
It's not a good thing.
Bad. You've got a right to do it, I guess, until you start infringing on people's rights to move about. There might be some elderly woman over there who wants to cross here. It's a lot of foolishness, and one day you'll all grow out of it.
Sure.
That is to be hoped and expected.
We'll be Republicans, right?
Absolutely.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks.
Absolutely. You'll be a very good one, too.
Good job. No institution that people's needs all about free. So beep. Take your voice to the street.
They just snatched them, handcuffed them, put them in the van. We want our brother back.
They're trying to take him. Yo, they're trying to take him.
Over here for help. Tell them what's happening. You're trying to free the prisoner. All right?
And your name, sir, is? Mike Africa from the MOVE organization. Now I want to point out, I got 9 MOVE people sitting in prison right now doing 30 to 100 years for a crime they didn't commit, including my mother and my father. We got serious work to do. We ain't out here talking just to be talking. We putting out information.
And what's the protest originally about? I mean, what were you protesting for?
For the release of my mother and my father, and Mumia Abu Jamal, and Leonard Peltier, and Russell Schultz, and all the rest of the political prisoners. And they told us we had to pack up. The van was coming to pick up the equipment. I told that idiot that the van was here, and he still grabbed it. See, this is supposed to be a democracy country, too, that you respond to people's complaints by using police brutality, by using jail terms and killing, like beating like they did Thomas Jones. And this is the way that they run their government. I don't want no part of it.
So just lay low, that's all I'm saying. Lay low, stay out of their way. I don't know. But you know, it's dangerous out here, so what I want you to do, hey, how you doing? I'll be right with you. Just chill out, okay, we'll take care of things. Perfect. All right, hey, how you doing? I'm John. All right, we have got the soapbox here live via satellite on national cable television, and we are going to provide a free forum for people to exercise your constitutional right to speech and freedom of expression. And what we're going to do is invite anybody who wants to come down here, come down and say whatever's on your mind. Doesn't matter who you are, what you have to say. Come on down here and say it, and you're welcome. We have a guy here, my man K.O.T. He's going to treat us to some serious poetry and some of his work, and let's just say, go to it, brother.
For those who resisted, caught in the mix and left twisting, on a mission, no fiction, rulers' new religion, to stack us all in prison. Politicians keep dissing, claim they uplifting, but they just tripping. Power concedes nothing less we start hitting. Leave cops limping, never skimping on any means that's necessary. Behind enemy lines, the dreamers of sanctuary. If we don't protect our own, we ain't revolution. Shit is elementary. Drop a dollar in they commissary. Write a letter, be impressed by their commentary. Some shit is legendary. Media claims they illusionary, cause they owners are scared and they long to bury their fears deep underground. Surrounded with white walls, small cells, no sound. We're not even the dream of a tree can be found. I lay lyrical flowers at the graves of those who died. Poetic lock picks for those still stuck inside. Wage war till cell doors blow open wide. Every rebel has support and a place to hide for those in the hole around the land. Cause any movement that doesn't support its prisoners is a sham. Smash all prisons, free all political prisoners and prisoners of war.
Oh yeah, it's all of that. It's all going on right out here, okay? Now we're gonna go to a videotape right now of a panel discussion earlier today, and that was by the group Changing America, and it's about culture and the struggle for justice, about how to use art to get your message across. So we're gonna go to that. Here we go, baby. Check it out. You're gonna love it. See ya.
I am Judith LeBlanc from Changing America, and we're welcoming two very important cultural activists, political activists, to discuss some very important issues. Welcome, Michael Frente and Jello Biafra.
Hi.
You know, today in the streets, yesterday in the streets, it was clear that the right wing, the Republicans, and even before this, those who hold the power in this country see culture, they see puppets as a real threat.
Mm-hmm.
What's the connection? Why is that so?
They don't want to have any puppets if they don't have the strings attached to and are controlling. That's my belief. I think that 6-foot-tall puppets strike fear in the hearts of evil men. I would say also continue to try and portray any resistance to the corporate world order as a sad 60s leftover among grim people who can't have any fun. And Gulf War protests on up to now have been almost a carnival at times. I mean, San Francisco was Mardi Gras all night and all afternoon after so many people walked off their jobs and protested Bush's little genocide frenzy and all. They don't want people to see the festive side resisting the corporate world order. They want to make it look like a the grim struggle that the old school left sometimes portrays it as.
Well, the truth is that it has been said in the past, the medium is the message. Mm-hmm. And to struggle for the rights of working families, for the oppressed, is an uplifting, humanizing experience. So what do you think? The new movement that's developing in this country worldwide has given cultural activists a new platform.
Mm-hmm. I think that it's important that those of us who are working for change, that if we believe that we're going to be victorious, which I do believe, then we have to start to think about, what does our victory look like? Does our victory look like a bunch of trash cans thrown around the street, or does it look like a parade of fun and life? And is it going to be a victory that says we're going to be the people who we've now
taken over, or does it say we are going to be embracing of those people? And I think that those of us who are in the struggle and in the streets have to think about that a lot. What are the methods that we use? You know, the Christian right and religious zealots have come after us and called us names and pointed a finger at us. So are we going to use those same tactics? Because what is it that we're trying to achieve in the end? And I believe that it's not enough just to be a good fighter, but that you have to be a visionary. You know?
I mean, with as flawed as their governments may have turned out to be, the Velvet Revolution in what was Czechoslovakia and the overthrow of the apartheid government in South Africa are still very inspiring to me, in part because the frontline radical resistance had a plan, at least a loose one, in the back of their head, is how on earth are we going to run this place if and when we have to, because someday we are going to have to. And not many people outside of Ralph Nader and some others have actually put that down yet, but I think more and more people will as the books come out, and I encourage people who listen to my stuff, you know, start thinking, you know, may sound egocentric, what would I do if I was in the president's shoes right now in this particular issue, or in the mayor's shoes or the police chief's shoes in this issue? How would I run the workplace differently if I was the boss? And even if it doesn't happen right away, just start thinking ahead. What would I do if I'm the one or we're the ones who are going to have to do it?
You know, the
Be ready, in other words.
That's right. The interesting thing that we saw very dramatically in the streets of Seattle and in D.C., and this week so far in Philadelphia, in the demonstrations against the right-wing political agenda of the Republican Party, is that there's a coming together of labor, working families, with the environmentalists, with young cultural artists, with every society that is suffering under capitalism. You two have worked extensively in the music field. You're musicians. Every great movement in this country has always generated much music. Singing is a part of struggle, not only in this country but worldwide. Why do you think that music can be a unique avenue to raise the fighting spirit of the people?
Well, there's been two unifying forces in the world since the beginning of time. The first is war, and the second one is professional wrestling.
In or outside of mud?
I know where that one came from. The second one is music, you know. And Perry Farrell, who's a buddy of ours, says that today we're in a war against war, and music has to be one of the forces that we use to bring people together and to unite people. And I think that, you know, when you look at all the tactics that we have of chaining themselves to a street, you know, or you know, using puppets or whatever it is, or becoming the media, or whatever we do, I think that the best strategy that we have is unity. And when we are able to unify through music, it's a very powerful galvanizing force of bringing people together.
Do you think there's a new trend that's emerging among musicians, both those who have major contracts, those who choose to get their music out on independent labels, and that music that's being generated in pubs and coffee houses and rallies around the country? Is there a new trend or movement among musicians?
I think that's been going on for a long, long time. And if you ask Utah Phillips, the folk singer, for example, and Ronnie DeFranco, it never quite left. Much of early and current punk rock was very, very political, and early rap, and to this day, especially that derided as gangster rap by corporate media, is very political. If it doesn't necessarily make slogans, it does illustrate a side of trying to cope in this economic boom America when you're poor and locked out of the gates. And at first, when I did a lot of my stuff, I was put down by other people in the punk world and outside it in the rock world as preachy and too political. And then as times got more and more heavy, I sort of took a lead from the more articulate political rappers, be it Public Enemy or Michael's band, Disposable Heroes of Hypocrisy and others, is, okay, preach or not, we have to get the word out about what's going on, because thanks to the Reagan era of loosening the laws, of deregulating business takeovers, the mass media that used to act as a fourth branch government to police the other three by exposing corruption and what outright nitwits they were, it's not a fourth branch anymore.
Well, you know, at the Republican convention tonight, we're going to give you an opportunity to respond to some of the things that they will be discussing at the Republican convention tonight. Tonight, their agenda is to discuss urban renewal. They want to talk about welfare reform. They're going to be talking about cutting the taxes for the middle class.
The middle class?
What's
they never cut taxes
What's
for
your
the middle
take on where should we be going in order to have real urban renewal and revitalization? What's your take on that?
Well, the most poignant thing that I saw yesterday in the demonstrations were the vehicles that they brought out to take the protesters away were yellow buses that said Philadelphia Unified School District on them. And I thought that was a perfect statement on where this country has gone in the last 10 years, which is the money has been taken directly out of schools, directly out of urban development, and has been placed into the prison system, and where people have been making enormous profits from. And because of the little bit of de-escalation in terms of military spending that's taken over the years, private business has said, hey, we've got this other thing, prisons now, where we can make tons of money off building prisons, staffing prisons.
A growth industry.
War against the American people, in other words.
Yeah.
I of two minds about that. Number one, I really like the Kensington Welfare Rights Union here. I think people who are really being hurt by welfare reform and the third worldization of our and plantationization of our economy should be belligerent as hell. I mean, I think it's high time for a million homeless march on Washington, where they come to visit and decide to stay. I mean, that sort of tactic helped bring down Herbert Hoover in the early part of the Depression, and I would say we probably need that again.
Well, I have to say that this discussion has been great. I wish it could go on and on and on, because I think that we have many problems to face, but we have many solutions if we look towards the people's struggles. So thank you very much for being a part of the panel.
3, 2.
Can you imagine Michael Franti, Jello Biafra, brought to you via TV, just in an interview like that? This is amazing stuff. Have I mentioned that it's live? It's live. Did I say my favorite phrase about this, from the seat of our pants direct to your TV? Well, now I've said it. In the next segment, we're going to look at a situation that started yesterday and continued today. An unused warehouse in West Philadelphia was put to very good use in the weeks leading up to the protests this week. Ministry for Puppet-Ganda. It was the headquarters of the Ministry for Puppet-Ganda, who were puppet activists. They used the place to make their puppets, make their props. And you know what? They made friends with the neighbors, if not with the cops. Let's go to tape.
Have you seen this many police in your neighborhood before? Never. When we call the police, it takes them about a good 15 to come to our neighborhood. But for this, they come here instantly. Why?
But the police are going to go in there and search. They're going to break a lot of people's signs and puppets and stuff.
One way or another, there's some form of dissent being expressed, whether it's animal rights or affirmative action. People are expressing what they think the government ought to be doing.
The world is watching, and so is God, and she's not happy.
Realize that the babies that you're going to burn, just like me.
These people have been here 2 or 3 weeks already. They have caused no disturbance, no confusion.
Have you had any problems with them in the last since
No,
they got
I
here?
haven't had any problems with them. I didn't even know. Yeah, I didn't even know they was around here, honestly. A problem with the protesters, but what's going on right now, I do have a problem with it.
All they have done was come into our neighborhood and help clean it up, clean up the lots, prepare food for the homeless, have no discrimination far as color or race or anything else.
You got guns, all we got is puppets. Shame. Shame.
You feel about the police charge that they have PVC pipe and bottles or whatever it is that they claim they have in the warehouse that seems to indicate possession of instruments.
I don't know what constitutes an instrument of crime. So, you know, at this moment, until I haven't really seen the warrant, but chicken wire and those things are all instruments to making puppets too. A lot of the materials that are being named. And so it's difficult right now to assess if that all that it was, then I think the show of force was extreme.
How can our mayor be from our area and never once come back to where his roots are? This is what I don't understand.
We need houses. Give us some money to fix these houses up so that I can raise my kids in a safe environment. So y'all don't understand what's going on. The Republicans is trying everything away from us.
It was a peaceful
Well, no, it's really focused here. Focused here.
My broadcast is coming from this location right here on the sidewalk.
Yeah. Until when? Until 10:30, right?
Sidewalk. And then the press office.
Press conference in there. There's a press conference in here, and then there's a studio. Permits for promotions. Yeah, it's just these three areas.
Okay, permits, credentials, and all that stuff. Okay. We're just concerned here.
Is this happening right now?
No W at the end.
I'm sorry.
And it's Eric K.
Independent Media Center right now as police question some of the workers here. What we're
All
doing
right,
inside.
we're back. We are live, still live. Hi, how are you? Just had a visit, no problem. Just concerned about, you know, our puppets and things. We have got a cameraman who's been out in the field, and he's taking some cool video. We want to have a word with him. Matt.
Hi, my name's Matt, as my friend here introduced me, and I've been working on the video team with the Independent Media Center. I had an interesting experience in police censorship today where I was trying to shoot what appeared to be an unlawful search and seizure of some people headed to a demonstration. A cop grabbed my camera by the lens, shoved it down, told me to take off my batteries and put it in my camera bag. And so I did that because what choice did I have? He said he'd arrest me if I didn't move promptly and follow his directions. And I talked to a reporter from the Daily News afterwards about it. He said, well, you know, our corporate lawyers told us to do what they tell us to because they're the police and, hey, they're under a lot of stress. It didn't seem to bother him that it was a total abridgment of his rights to freedom of the press.
All
I just wanted to share that with you.
Thank you very much, Matt. Thank you very much. We're going to cut over to Kane and Abel. No, we're not. Okay, we're just going to hang here. We're going to wrap it up. We're going to take you to another video segment called Making History, okay?
It's all go here at the Independent Media Center. I'm Laura Flanders. You're getting a live broadcast from inside the Independent Media Center in Philadelphia. We go now to a regular feature produced by Changing America, Policy Matters. Here it is.
Aisha Anderson Oberman from Baltimore, Maryland, school teacher, now coordinating Union Summer in Baltimore. I think it's really important that young people understand what's at stake here when we're coming up on this election here in 2000. A lot of us are really looking at it as there's little at stake, and there really isn't. It's huge. Right now, if Republicans were to take control of the White House and of Congress, you have to understand that they're making decisions that affect public education. They're making decisions that are going to affect you on the job and in your communities every day. One thing that most people don't know is that in Texas, George W. Bush wanted to abolish the Department of Education. And if that was to happen, there would be nothing protecting our K through 12 education. And then if you look at it on a national level, what happens to our university education and our community colleges and things of that nature? Many of us are attending these institutions or have family who are and cannot afford to lose those. We also have to avoid a push towards privatization. The more that things become private, the less access there are people from all backgrounds. Also, as young workers, we have to understand that there are a lot of things at stake. You have things like minimum wage that really needs to be raised to a living wage where people can survive and raise families off of, and it's not going to happen under Republican leadership. Also, we have to understand that as workers, our conditions are getting worse. As a school teacher, my class size is continuing to get larger, but my funding is continuing to get smaller. I have to fight for that. I have to be a part of this movement. All young people have to be a part of the labor movement and community coalitions that are fighting for change. And the Republican National Convention and the protests there are going to be an excellent way to start. Got to go because my group's over here. That's great.
3, 2.
What you see there is the scene right outside the Independent Media Center where there are still cops. I think they call it milling. They are milling around in a non-threatening kind of way, but we're keeping a close eye going on outside, and we'll bring you updates as this show continues. This show does continue. There is more still. So if your station is tuning away now, why don't you give them a call, thank them for broadcasting the program so far, and encourage them to show the whole deal, the whole 90-minute broadcast of Crashing the Party. You wouldn't want to miss anything, would you? If you want more information about Free Speech TV's 24-hour programming on the Dish Network, that's part of how you're seeing this show tonight, you can get that at the website www.freespeech.org, www.freespeech.org, and we welcome all of you in the dozens of cities around this country who are watching this program courtesy of the Public Access Cable Network, from Chicago to New York to Sacramento to California. We are thrilled to have you with us, and we are hoping that you will stay around as we go forward with Crashing the Party here from Philadelphia during the Republican National Convention. We are going to be broadcasting in the next soapbox, more culture, more news, and more of the views that you don't hear on the other guys. We're getting some attention from them, though. We've had every kind of a press come into our offices this week. You keep an eye out and see who covers the Independent Media Center. We're busy covering ourselves with thousands of videographers and webmeisters and writers. We're getting some write-ups, too, so stay aware. My name's Laura Flanders. I'm with Radio for Change. You're watching Crashing the Party from the Independent Media Center, Philadelphia. We'll be right back after this break.
Obsession, fascination, fetish, fragmentation. Why are 9 out of 10 women dissatisfied with some aspect of their own bodies? The beauty industry is the beast.
Watch television, watch television sets.
Looking to get more out of your TV this summer? Get the best of progressive television from the Independent Media Center and Free Speech TV, now playing 24/7 on Dish Channel 9415. Visit freespeech.org for information on how to bring the best of the activist airwaves into your home.
I think that the revolution is
Being televised.
yes, it is.
Smile, Jamal.
The human race will surely be extinct, because whether you like it or not, this is crime, cocaine, wars, and broken lives, AIDS plaguing the land. Against the sex drive, unemployment is a rising, suicide is up. So much pressure inside, I'm about to emerge.
Live and direct inside the IMC, it's The Last Step, and I'm standing here with the two co-founders of the IMC, Alec. First of all, Angie, could you give us a basic background of how the IMC came to be?
Yeah, sure. Basically, as soon as the Republicans made their announcement that they were going to be having the convention here in Philadelphia, local activists and media makers began planning what kind of actions they were going to have during the convention, and it was thought that an independent media center would be a very important vehicle to help get activist views across. That's one of the things that mainstream media has really been unsuccessful at. So that's why we formed, and we've been organized for over a year now. Okay,
Alec, with that said, what's going to take place once the convention is over? What's the IMC's role after that?
Well, I'm going to take a break, but beyond that, we're still looking into it. I think we have a great coalition here of people in Philadelphia, a lot of activists, a lot of media makers. We want to take that further and really further the concept of media democracy. I mean, that's what we're doing here. We've got over 500 people making all kinds of media. We're doing print, we're doing audio, we're doing TV. We got all kinds of stuff going on, and we want to continue that and build the movement.
Okay, thank you very much, Alex and Inja. Excellent work here. But next, we're going to go outside and check out what's happening at the Soapbox. I'm sure it's something that no one wants to miss. Stay tuned.
This is Chase. Chase is going to tell us what's happening out here, why the police are here.
I just got done talking to the Secret Service, and a swarm of Secret Service and police officers were just called to the scene here. They suspected that there was some terrorist activity going on. They spotted a couple of gentlemen with gas masks on their face, carrying suspicious backpacks. They thought there might be bombs strapped to their back. We rushed down here from the studio to see what was going on, and this is what we found down here.
This is Cain and Abel, and this is the reason why we've attracted so much heat. Right now for a videotape called Spending on Education versus Prison.
Please welcome Mr. Jonathan. In New York City, we see numbers that reveal our national priorities just as vividly as in Pennsylvania or California or Texas. We spend $8,000 a year in the public schools of New York to educate a sweet, innocent little boy like Elio, the little one I just described, third grader. Pick him up in your grown-up arms and you plunk him down in a wealthy suburb of New York, really wealthy suburb. We spend $20,000 a year to educate him. But if he grows up enraged, indignant, tormented, after all these years, goes out some night and takes revenge on our society, commits a terrible crime, and ends up at Rikers Island, then we'll spend real money. $64,000 a year to keep a man out there in Rikers Island. And if he commits the crime even sooner, when he's only 11 years old, he gets sent into the spectacular, ultra-modern, block-long new prison, which has just been built 6 blocks from his public school in the South Bronx. The Reform School is the only new school in the South Bronx. He gets sent there, brought there in chains, as young as 11 years old. Then we will spend $93,000 a year to keep him there. What good society, what smart society, what ultimately Judeo-Christian society would ever spend 10 times as much to penalize a human being as it would to bless him when he's still a baby?
I'm here with Justice in the Hood, a rally and a march to the 39th Police District. One of our focuses is the police state, police abuse, police brutality, of which this city is becoming famous for. We've had police shootings just in the last 3 years. And not one of the officers were brought to trial. I think the people in the community, they take this for granted. They take police abuse for granted. They are just so used to it that they expect it. And they feel they can't do anything about it. And as an individual, perhaps one or cannot. But collectively, the community can do something about it.
I think what inspired this event was a number of rallies that were held in Harrisburg and in City Hall. And my growing up around the community, it's mostly impacted by these issues that we rally against. I felt that we needed a rally in the hood or in the community where these issues are mostly affecting people. It's nice to have them here. It's nice to have them in City Hall. We appreciate that. But the people in the community need to lead their community. And this is an attempt to get them organized so they can do such.
So you've been giving these out to people?
Yes.
And how people reacted?
Well, they said they was going to read it when they got home.
Have you gotten much support from people?
Yes. We have gotten people support from people in Switzerland, Germany, Canada, all over.
How about here in Philadelphia?
Even here in Philadelphia. My church has been a big support. You can contact Governor Ridge at 717-787-2500. We would like for you to have Governor Ridge to stop the execution. We would like for you to ask him to stop the execution, interview these young men and women that are on death row before you sign their death warrant.
You said you've met other guys on death row.
Yeah,
and,
I've met their families.
How many of them are black?
Practically all of them. Yeah, most of them up there are black.
Why do you think that is?
Beg your pardon?
Why do you think that is?
Because of the justice system.
You bring the life, they bring the pain. In your stomach and your chest. If you survive, then you gain. You did your best, yes. What? I said, check, relocate, I'm in replace my baby's father's face with no recollection of his time and space in my life. Strife stricken, and I'm picking a new dress to wear to my next conjugal visit. To get my new boyfriend got a bulletproof vest show, but who's gonna bulletproof my heart in the test that my government is chosen tax money to invest in? Check them on lockdown. Can you hear the sound of our men face down kissing the concrete? They say crime depletes with our black men off streets. What you think? I said 50 is a new gang around where I hang. First the whoop whoop and then the bang, holding that thing, that power over me, that authority, what? That power over we, 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 what? The power over we, what? Power over we, that authority, 50, 50, 50, 50, 50, 50.
3, 2, 1.
TV like this can be dangerous to your health, but really it's the news, the corporate news, that should be watched with caution. This kind of TV can wake people up. There isn't enough waking people up on the other guys. Do we have an adversarial press? Not when it comes to handling people with power and influence. So tune in with her. Here's Fordham University's Robin Anderson with some tips. She's coming right up.
Again, this is one of the issues of very much in concern to the people that are protesting in Philadelphia about the corporate takeover of American politics, about a country based on corporate needs rather than human needs and humanity. Hi, my name is Robin Anderson, and I teach media studies at Fordham University. I'm here at the IMC in Philadelphia. I thought we could get some of the local TV coverage of the demonstrations in Philadelphia. This is the NBC affiliate coverage of the demonstrations at the Republican National Convention yesterday.
We're live with the latest on street closings and police action. Tonight on News 10 at 6. How are you coping with the convention? The traffic, the protests, the inconvenience. News 10 shows you how to avoid the headaches.
As you can see, it's like a lot like local television coverage of anything. It's sensational, it's dramatic. Protests will anticipate violence. This is very much for ratings and viewer anticipation. Then they go on to point out that the protests are about headaches and inconvenience. And the focus really here in Philadelphia around the protests has been about stopping traffic and a kind of consumer inconvenience. There's been very little coverage of the way in which the protests relate to the issues and the platforms of the Republican Party and how that's been playing out at the Republican National Convention. There's almost a rupture between what the protests are trying, not getting through to the media, and what's going on at the convention.
Because once again, we told you earlier that the protesters have been taunting police, but they've been standing there taking it.
You can see from this footage that the television news crews are telling us that the protesters are taunting the police. We know that this has to come from official word or press releases from the police force themselves because we don't see footage of that. Instead, what they go to next are what really characterizes the demonstrators and the non-aggressive, non-violent stance of peaceful protest. While this is the footage that the local news chooses to roll, at the IMC, independent videographers have shown other footage which actually does show the police actually taunting the demonstrators. Let's take a look at some of the network national news coverage and start out with a Peter Jennings piece on ABC News.
Peter, the Bush camp at least feels this family feud is getting out of control.
Late today, former President Bush said he got in trouble with his threat yesterday to attack Bill Clinton.
This is just network dribble. I mean, it's a little tip between President Clinton and Bush about the character issue, if you even want to call it that, but really it's just characterized as a comedy, a family feud, and this passes for serious news on network news programming.
There are many ways to measure what has happened to the military during the Clinton years, but here's one. At the start of the Clinton administration, 85% combat units in the Air Force were rated ready to go to war. By the start of this year, that number had declined to just 65%.
This piece is clearly a public relations news story, very much in favor of the Pentagon and increased spending toward the Pentagon. Also part of the Republican Party convention, increased spending on the military. And this is what the news, the nightly news and network news chooses to cover instead of thousands of people in the street yesterday in Philadelphia who are concerned about homelessness, issues of education, issues of poverty, criminal injustice, the various kinds of things that affects people's everyday lives.
No problem.
Okay, let's go from here, wherever you want to start.
And people do not know who you are, and you introduce yourself as an African-American woman, as George W. Bush's foreign policy advisor. What's the reaction?
Well, I guess people smile and they say, is that right? And then we get beyond it and talk about whatever.
Rice is described as tough, smart, loyal. Raised in the segregated South, her parents taught her never to allow race or a working class background.
This is another piece by NBC, which is another public relations connection with the Republican Party. There was talk afterwards in the broadcast that this Condoleezza Rice would be appointed as a national security advisor. This is very much connected to the Bush campaign, and also has the added benefit of showing that the campaign is diverse, include black women in the cabinet, when in fact we all know, and the New York Times has reported, one of the only press organs to critically report that the appearance of diversity trying to be imparted by the Republican Party is actually just an image, and the party is not composed of a diverse group of people, but rather billionaires, millionaires, and the wealthy. So it seems to me that the mainstream media has demonstrated that you need to watch television with caution, that what's going on in the world is often not what's being reported on South, that what we're experiencing here on the ground in Philadelphia with the protests and the people in the street expressing their First Amendment rights is really not being adequately represented by either local news or network news. And when you watch your television with caution, maybe that will inspire you to also work for independent media or become active with independent media, because only by making it can you really see through it.
Thanks, Robin. As if the mainstream media coverage wasn't set enough, now we're going to go to Drexel University's cable television station that's been broadcasting this show live all week here in Philly for a satirical look at this week's protests.
People are congregating on this corner, and we just had a secret tip that something's going to be happening here in 5 minutes. So we're going to hang out here and find out.
Hello, I'm Mr. Rotten, and I'm here because I'm amused by American politics. It's a great afternoon out. Much less passive than going and watching a ball game, or worse yet, staying at work. No more drilling clubs, we want yacht clubs. No more drilling clubs, we want yacht clubs. Ain't no power like the power of the people, because the power of the people don't stop. Say what? Ain't like the power of the people, because the power of the people don't stop. Say what? Make trouble.
Our streets! Our streets! Our streets!
How do you think your mother's going to feel about this?
She's going to be very upset and probably ground me or take away my tuition.
If you get busted, is she going to post bail for you?
I don't think so.
Maybe after a week or two she'll let you out, right? All right.
Hello, Police Commissioner Timothy and Elizabeth. I want to get a shot of the two of you together. Beautiful, thanks.
Okay, Mayor, Elizabeth is here. She says let the protesters have free reign of the city.
Ain't no power like the power of the people, the power of the people don't stop.
See, anarchists hug too.
I love to hug.
There we go.
I took a shower last night too.
Big tea parties.
Say that again.
Yeah. Some of my best friends are anarchists.
Rock, 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 rock. And now, big tea parties. Protest play of the day.
I protest against protesters. I protest against protesters.
We live like 5 blocks away from where it
Okay.
happens.
Oh, good. So we'll do that.
My name is Luis Liceaga. I'm the owner and president of ABL Classic Group, Inc. We are, at the present time, we are involved with the Republican National Convention. We are embroidering all their hats, polo shirts, jackets, t-shirts, and golf shoe bags. Most of the product comes already manufactured when it comes here, and we just, the term that we use is embellish it. Everything that has a logo on the garment is basically what we call a walking billboard for people.
Something was falling.
Buy this one?
Yes. Such a nice color. Yo, America.
Republican convention for
difference between official and unofficial merchandise, do you value that at all?
Not really. You know, it's what are you getting for your dollar?
Oh, you know, basically the same type of thing. You know, things that would have our Republican state logo on it, the national logo, those type of things.
You know, it's just like ball team merchandise, and so it's kind of the same trend.
We are the oldest line Republican jewelry manufacturers in the country. We have attended every Republican convention since Eisenhower's. My father was the first one to make political jewelry and made it for the Republican Party back in 1952. These are two pins with the official logo that Libertarians are going to be using, and I'm not sure how they're using it.
So they're selling it in the official section, you're not selling it here?
Oh, no, not at all. It's just a lot of fun to do. Baseball cards for Republican, Democratic jewelry. It's all part of history.
What is your name?
My name is Caitlin Clark.
And how old are you?
I am 12 years old and I have a twin sister.
Are you going to buy anything from the convention?
Yeah, I'm probably going to buy like books and stuff and t-shirts and probably ones that says Bush or something. That's like my mom is rooting for and stuff.
So what do you is buying a t-shirt at a political convention different to buying a t-shirt any other time?
Yeah, because my family's like all Republican and stuff, so there's like nothing. It's like cool like to have Bush on your t-shirt and stuff.
So what candidate do you think's gonna win?
I think Bush is gonna win. I really do, because of this and stuff, and he's a really great guy.
What over here makes you think he's gonna win?
Just because of all the t-shirts, hats, the commercials on television, and he just is real great.
How much of a benefit is the convention sales going to be to your company?
I like making money. It supports my Jaguar, it supports my boat Marina Del Rey, and it helps my kid in college.
And where do you think the profits for the official merchandise go?
I have not a clue.
3, 2.
Thank you to the folks from the Philly Independent Media Center and from DUTV for those last two segments. It's been an extraordinary experience so far this week, Jamal, and an honor and a privilege for folks like me from out of town to come to your fair city of brotherly love. But it must bring up a lot of folks like you.
Well, obviously, you know, in light of the things that we've witnessed here today, a lot of the footage from a riveting speech by, in my opinion, by Michael Africa of the MOVE organization, it just really, really rekindles old memories of what occurred in 1985, and, you know, witnessing those things firsthand and to see what's been taking place within the past 72 hours is just really overwhelming, and it really shows a need for definite activism in the streets.
Yeah, I mean, I was reminded 15 years ago when the mayor of the took action against the MOVE House, the African Nationalist Community House, and ended up burning the place down in a block and a half of community houses, killing 11 people and 5 kids. On this Wednesday night, as the Republicans are talking about leaving no child behind, those 5 kids stand out pretty clearly in my mind, and yours too, I bet.
Exactly.
But police brutality has been in the news recently here in this city, and it's exciting for people to now be seeing it in the context of the protest. But let's not forget what was happening on the streets before any of us arrived.
Exactly. You know, again, we addressed what took place with the gentleman in 30th Street Station here,
Who was
as
killed.
far as who is now deceased, and you know, there's no coming back from that. You know, and a lot of the footage that we've seen today, many people can recover from those wounds, as heavy as they may be, but even that's too much. You know, once the first blow is thrown, it's gone far enough. and we really need to do something about
Right.
that.
There's a history of police brutality. Police brutality is one of the issues that the protesters were addressing today. The man on the station, a homeless man, shot by an Amtrak policeman. That's a federally funded railway station, railway service, shot on the platform just a week or so before the convention here in the city. And of course, nobody probably can forget the images of the beating by the Philadelphia police of Thomas Jones shortly before we all arrived. So I think we're making history here, both in the media and in what's happening in the streets, and we're making connections that I think will last forever. And that goes for the media colleagues who have come together to broadcast to you too. We want to thank you at home for tuning in, whether you're watching us on DUTV or at WYBE, both of whom are playing this program live here in Philadelphia, or on Free Speech TV's Dish Network, channel 9515, or on your local public access station. Or you could be watching on the web. We're streaming live on www.freespeech.org. To learn more, you can find out about this show and the morning telecast of Pacifica's Democracy Now! By visiting www.freespeech.org. That's www.freespeech.org. You can also get more information there about Free Speech TV's 24-hour programming on the Dish Network. Democracy Now! And Crashing the Party are free to your community TV station, so call them, urge them to play the whole deal. Laura Flanders for Radio for Change, and Jamal.
Last step, tune in. Please stay with us all week.
We'll be right back tomorrow night.
Terrorists, okay? We're going to observe them for a while so you know what to look for.
Is dictated like this. The amount you have to pump is dictated by guys like these. Because automakers are dragging their heels on fuel efficiency, while auto pollution is a main cause of global warming and the problems that come with it. If you care about global warming and what it will do to your kids and their kids, dictate a message to this guy. Call us. We'll tell you how.
Watch television, watch television.
Looking to get more out of your TV this summer? Get the best of progressive television from the Independent Media Center and Free Speech TV, now playing 24/7 on Dish Network channel 9415. Visit freespeech.org for information on how to bring the best of the activist airwaves into your home.
I think that the revolution is
being televised.
Yes.